guys, it's Kate and I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to be doing something similar to my recent video with the negative painting with the Posca pen, but this time I'm going to do something much more abstract. So I've got my MozArt Komorebi palette. I'm going to be dipping a little bit into my neon colors today, and I think I'm also going to do some turquoise and maybe this pink color, and just get a nice background on my paper. My paper is dry and I want to just have plenty of brightness on here because I'm going to be going over the background with a nice dark color. So I'm going to start with this color here, getting plenty of water on my brush and covering a good portion of my paper. And then I'm going to go into my neon pink, and you can see the huge difference, and the camera really does not do it justice. It is incredibly bright, just like a highlighter. So I'm going to keep dropping a little bit of this in over my normal colors, and then I'm going to come in with that turquoise, and I'm going to do that around the corners and then also come into the painting a bit. And I love how it kind of spreads in from the outside there. That's really a cool effect. Now it's a little bit dry up here, so I'm just going to wet my brush and kind of help it along a bit. And then I'm going to grab a little bit more of this turquoise and go around some of these borders. We're just going to make a really fun, bright background. I actually really love how this looks. That's pretty cool. I'm going to put some more pink in here, and that might actually be pretty good. I kind of like how this looks, and we have a lot of different colors and interests going on. The only other thing I might add a little bit of is some of this metallic purple. And I might just kind of go down through this turquoise area and just let some of that come right off my brush, maybe here too. And the more texture, the better. I don't care about these hard edges and stuff like that, or if we have any cauliflowering going on. That doesn't matter to me today, because we're going to be doing all kinds of arc making on top of this, and the texture will actually be helped. All right, I'm going to let this dry, and I'll be back. Okay, I was going to do some negative painting or doodling on here, but honestly I love the texture so much how it dried. I'm just going to doodle on it. Everything is dry except for just a little bit of dampness here, so I'm just going to save that for later and start doodling on the rest. So I grabbed some fine liners. I'm probably going to have a white pen. I don't know. I don't want to, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here, so I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I did grab my medium tip black painter's marker because I'm going to start with my main sort of element. And what I'm going to do is have these little sort of scallops come out just like this. And I'm going to have them coming down to the end. And this is very random here. I'm loosely following the lines from my watercolor, but it's not exact. But I do want to have this sort of come circle around and follow the pattern that I started with my watercolor. So I'm going to add, I think, a little bit more of something here, kind of coming out from the side there, and then one here, so we can have kind of an even distribution of these little shapes here. I don't know what I'm going to do with the center spot yet, but I'm just going to leave it blank for now. And so now that I've got my outlines in, I'm going to take one of my finer tips. So I'm going to do the 04 tip, 0.4 millimeters, and I'm going to start filling in these shapes. Now I want them to show that watercolor through. So I'm going to make some of these lines following the pattern of the dark outline, just like that. And I'm just going to go through and do that with all of these shapes. Okay, now that I've got all of these filled in, and I went to my 05 tip after a minute because I started to lose a little bit of ink, and then I went over and made them a little bit more messy, so you can see some of these lines kind of overlap here. So I'm grabbing my painter's marker again, and where I've got these kind of hard edges, I'm going to soften them just to make this curve a little bit nicer. So I'm just taking out all of the corners basically so that we are operating with smooth edges all the way down to the bottom. And so it's just going to be thickening up some of these spots and just making sure that everything is smooth, just like that. And I think that looks pretty neat. I'm going to widen this just a little bit. And maybe this one too. I kind of like how this flows. So now I'm just kind of playing around with it a little bit. And I might widen this one right here. And make it a little bit more of a thick line, and I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to widen this a little bit here too. I'm just going through making sure I have everything smoothed out, and I'm making the line just a little bit wider in a couple of these areas because I like how this looks, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it as I go. I'm going to have it thickening up there a little bit and maybe a little bit at this tip. So I'm just trying to make it a smooth line that tapers nicely here. This is a really cool little texture. All right. So here I want to add something. This is where we have that sparkle from the metallic watercolor, and it's kind of everywhere where you see this purple, and you can really see that shimmer in the light. And I want to take advantage of that so you can see the shimmer, but also there's not a whole lot of watercolor texture going on here. So I think this might benefit from maybe a little bit of a tighter pattern. I'm going to try doing some spirals with this. So I'm going to grab my 05 tip again, and I'm going to start adding another spiral pattern. Now with this, I'm going to have, I think, some of these touching, but I'm going to have some negative space here too that we can color in. So that way it will really stand out, and even though it's kind of a busy pattern because we've got kind of a fine pattern next to a fine pattern, some of that negative space will really help with that when we increase the contrast with some of the black. So I'm just going to go through here and fill in these spirals. I'm also going to add those spirals into this little purple area here. I want them to be in a couple of different spots on this paper. And again, I'm only doing it to the purpley border on this watercolor. Got my other black marker, and I'm going to do some coloring here right around these edges. I'm switching markers because my other one is doing a little bit of leaking, and I don't want it to get too much ink on the paper here. This is a little bit pooled up, so I'm just going to my number 1 tip fine liner, which is a little bit like a medium point marker. All right, I've got all my black colored in negative, and I'm going back to the 05 tip, and I really love this as kind of like a focal point. And I'm going to make some leaves kind of coming up out of here. Just sort of random, but filling in the space and kind of going with the flow of the shape. And I'm going to fill in each of these little leaves. And I don't know if I'm going to add any more along the stems, but I'm just going to take a look once I get done with these, and I can add some more if I feel like I want to. And they're just little and simple, and I think that's pretty. I'm going to add some shorter ones in here, some shorter stems, and fill this out just a little bit more. I think that's really pretty. Maybe just one more facing down that way. Now I'm going to add my little grasses, I think. I'm going to bring this black out more, all the way to the corner. Actually, I kind of like that. I'm going to thicken it just a little bit and still have it taper down toward the edge so that we have a little bit of a ground. And then I'm going to make some little grass shapes. So we have a little bit of texture down here, and maybe I'll add another couple of leaves coming out of the bottom, and some more of these grasses. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of embracing the rough edge here, where I've got smooth edges in here, and I'm just kind of randomly putting in these lines at different heights, and then I'm kind of filling in the bottom. Now where it stops going, where I can draw up, I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to add some more up here. And I'm trying to make it sort of random the best I can, because you tend to want to mix the high and low, but you kind of do it in a not so random pattern without realizing, and I don't want to do that. And I really like that texture there. And I think if I were to add it to one more spot, I might put it around this little shape here. That's pretty cool. I like that. I think this looks great. Okay, I'm going to grab some white now, and I'm going to grab my white jelly roll and also maybe my white Posca, so that way I can get some different thickness in my lines. So I'm going to zoom out just a little, and I'm going to start with the Posca, I think, and I'm just going to add some dashes here. You can't see them all that well, but it just adds a little bit of extra contrast into these grassy spots. Now I'm going to go around the outside of these bigger shapes with a bit of a pattern here. And it's going to add some white and some contrast into that thick, dark line area. All right, we've got some really fun marks on here. I love how this is coming together. I want to add some sparkle now, and I'm not sure if I want to do gold or silver. I might actually go with silver for this one as a nice cool metallic color. But we'll see. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to grab my silver uniball, and I think what I want to do first is color in a little bit of these loops inside the shapes. And I'm just picking some random shapes that I want to color in. And I really like that with the silver. So what I'm doing is I'm just picking a couple of these spaces between my pen lines, and I'm just filling it in loosely with this silver. And so it adds a little bit of something to the color. We get a bit of sparkle, and you still have plenty of texture here. So I'm just going to do that for all of these loops, and I'm just going to do a couple of little fill-ins on each one, and wherever I have lines kind of intersecting, I'm going to just kind of be mindful of that and stop it. I want them to look very organic, so you can see where I'm sort of staggering them a little bit, and I'm not all in the same loop. I'm not all in the same shape. And you really don't even have to follow your lines, but it's kind of a nice way to try to make it a little bit more random. I really love how this looks. My pen kind of clogged up for a second, but look at that metallic color on there. I think that looks really cool. I'm going to use this silver in just a couple of these spirals, just for an extra pop. And I'm just going over the original black. I think that looks awesome. I'm going to grab one more color of Posca, and that is the fuchsia. And I'm going to add a little bit right here in the center. And a little bit of this silver also. All right, is this overdone? No, never. I love the Zen Tangle look. I love the colors and the patterns, and this is just very, very abstract and really a lot of fun. It doesn't take too long either. I'm so glad that I chose the silver on this one. I think that one was a good choice beside, instead of the gold that I would normally go for. So I'm going to give you the close-up here, and hopefully you try this with your supplies that you have at home. You don't need anything really special. Just grab some markers, pens, pencils, whatever you've got, and your watercolors, and just have a nice time with it. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can see more videos just like this one. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, keep creating.